And then you've got that dark split fig. You know, that's what I love about it as well, is that you can go to your local fruit and veg stall and you'll see these things and you'll think, yeah, he absolutely got that.
Supper at Emmaus, depicting the moment the resurrected Jesus reveals himself to two of his disciples, was a popular theme in the 16th century. But the basket of fruit, and where Caravaggio has placed it in the picture, is a truly radical statement.
You've got the vine leaves and the grapes, which symbolise the blood of Christ, his sacrifice. You've got the pomegranate, which symbolises the fruitful womb of the Virgin Mary. And you've got the apple eaten by the worm, right. The rotten apple, which symbolises human sin, the fact that Eve tempted Adam to eat from the apple, which is why we are sinners, it's why we need to be saved by Christ. And this whole basket of fruit, which sums up all of human existence, is teetering on the table. Right. So all of our life is summed up by that bowl of fruit, and it might just fall off the table at any moment.
Fruit really hadn't been represented like this before. Do you think people appreciated that sort of, you know, warts and all?
Yeah, I think they did. I mean, this is Caravaggio painting a devotional picture for a private patron in Rome. He's just made it as a painter. He's only just become famous. It's, you know, it's the first instant of his celebrity, and the commissions are pouring in, and he's got a commission for a very, very rich Roman patron to paint this picture, and he's absolutely determined. He knows all the cardinals, the Pope, everyone's going to see this painting in the guy's house. So he's putting out all the stops. And arguably, you know, Caravaggio never quite paints this carefully, this meticulously, pays such close attention to the cinematic realism of his art. He'll never quite do that again.
As an artist, he was sublime. But Caravaggio's personal reputation as a hellraiser was no idle boast. He was violent and totally amoral. So how did this bad boy image play into his art?
I need to sit down after that painting. I'm exhausted by the intensity of it. There was a lot of trouble in his life. He was accused of murder.
Well, more than accused. He was a murderer.
He was.
He clashed with this guy, Ranuccio Tomassoni, who was a bit of a bully boy in the local area. And he seems probably, I think, to have been having an affair with Tomassoni's girl. Right. And when he killed Tomassoni, he seems to have been trying to stab him in the penis. Ooh. Which would be a wound means something in Rome. You try and cut, it sounds horrible, but you try and cut his
thing off.
His thing off, because that proves that you've, not only have I got your girl, but I've done that to you as well. And he missed, and he hit the femoral artery, which is in the groin.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a theory. But the guy bled to death from the groin. You know, the groin is not a normal place to be stabbed in a sword fight. So Caravaggio, I think, was trying to say something to the guy. It's like, you know, even when he's got a sword in his hand, the mark has to be meaningful. Yeah. I mean, he's a painter. Every mark counts.
Apart from the brawling, Caravaggio left one other unexpected legacy. He painted his fruit in such a realistic fashion that it's now possible to forensically work out the kind of fruit varieties people were eating at the time. I've come to Città di Castello in Perugia to meet Isabella Dalla Ragione, who takes her fruit very seriously. She's a specialist in tracking down ancient fruit varieties featured in Renaissance paintings. Most of these ancient varieties have disappeared from our orchards. Isabella's mission is to bring them back to life.
The painters who painted these frescoes took inspiration from the real fruits, the real vegetables that they had around them.
Right.
So from the reality. So for me, like pictures.
Yeah, so it's like a photographic record of the time.
Absolutely.
She's taking me to an extraordinary fresco close to her home where ancient fruits are depicted.
Pergola is specialized in grape varieties.
Sure. Tell me, how many varieties of grapes are there?
More or less 20 varieties.
Wow. I really understand why you love it so much. I really do. I can really see how important it is, and you know, it's great. It's amazing.
Back at her farm, I can see the fruits of her labor. These are hitherto extinct varieties that Isabella has lovingly regenerated.
My father planted this vineyard with many old varieties, like Grecchetto, like Moscatello,
Yeah.
so, and Uva delle Vecchie and Parlano. All the varieties of grapes
Right.
are planted here. And some of them we can use for the kitchen.
But it's the discovery of ancient varieties of fruit and then finding them in Renaissance paintings that's at the core of Isabella's research.
This apple is very interesting. I
Right.
found this very strange apple in the pear shape.
It's a pear shape.
You can find the same apple in one painting of Pinturicchio. You can find near the feet of the Madonna and just a little group with this apple.
You found the picture first? Or
Yeah, no. I found
the words.
the variety, the apple,
Yeah.
and then I compared some painting, and finally I found in the Pinturicchio painting.
Wow, that's amazing. The intensity of the quality of the painting must have been, it obviously was extremely fine for you to be able to identify an apple variety from a painting really in the 1500s.
The painters like Pinturicchio or Cristofano Gherardi or Crivelli were so fine painters
Right.
that they really painted in the realistic way. This is the rusty apple
Okay.
that you find the Crivelli painting, you
Right.
see?
How is this used in the Crivelli painting?
You can find in the hands of the Bambino. It's a nice painting because the Bambino Gesù has in his hands and near the face.
Right.
And it's very similar, the apple and the face of the child.
Wow. What was an apple a symbol of in those paintings?
Apple is a symbol of, in general, of Eden.
Yes.
And
Pleasure.
and the apple in general is one of the most important cultivated fruit in the world.
Right.
Luckily for me, Isabella is an enthusiastic cook who specialises in fruit desserts. I'm really curious as to how these old varieties taste. She's making an ancient version of apple and grape cake, or pie as they call it here.
The grapes.
We are ready, eh?
I got to have some grapes before we start. Though. Sorry, my tummy is rumbling here.
Okay, we prepare the apple. We take over the skin.
That's not how my mum used to do it. I used to have to peel the apples. She would make me peel the whole thing round and then cut the segment. No?
No, I have another technique.
Yeah, you have yours. I think yours is better. One's Italian, one's Irish, right?
3 of sugar
Yeah.
and 3. 1 not full of oil. And then we mix, right? Okay? I think that it's enough. Vabbè. Ecco qua. If you put some powdered sugar, when the pie is cooking, become a
You
little
get a
bit,
glaze. Yeah, you get a bit of brownness on the.
Yeah.
Sure.
Our pie will be baked as it may have been in Caravaggio's day, in a wood-burning stove.
Voila!
Aha.
In the heat of the oven, it isn't long before Isabella's pie is ready to be served.
Looks great.
So, yeah, we try?
Yeah.
Wow. Now it's too hot, I think.
It is hot.
Yeah. If you wait, that become colder.
Why would I want to wait? It's delicious. It's a little piece of history. Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
But painting fruit so realistically you could almost eat it off the canvas wasn't the driving force for one great artist centuries later. The Côte d'Azur in the south of France was a magnet for many artists in the 19th century who loved its fantastic light and colour. But there was one painter who discovered something else here. Henri Matisse grew up in the flat, grey countryside of northern France. When he arrived in the Côte d'Azur in 1917, he must have been astounded by the explosion of colour. In particular, he was captivated by the rich, succulent allure of oranges. Matisse was about to embark on a lifelong obsession. One fruit would dominate his paintings.
Here on the Côte d'Azur, Matisse found inspiration in colour, in palm trees. He had photographs of flowers in his rooms. There were oranges on the trees, and oranges were much more than just a fruit to Matisse. They were about joy and inspiration and colour.
I'm at the Matisse Museum in Nice to look at one of his greatest works, painted in 1947, Nature aux Mortes Grenades.
What I see here is a painting near the end of Matisse's life where he had perfected colour. I mean, there's a real evolution in Matisse's paintings, and this is a real high point of colour. You're drawn to the pomegranates, you're drawn to the palm tree. The black walls, obviously, for me, symbolise his inability to get outside. But it is that the way he balanced colour to make everything come alive. It just looks like you could reach out and eat that fruit. It's just a beautiful thing.
Madame Pulvany is curator of the museum and can tell me why oranges and colour became such an integral part of Matisse's work.
Matisse's style really evolved when he came to the south of France. It became much more about the colour and the south of France.
It was the beginning of the work with the sun. And Matisse find a new way here, that is to say, simplification of the color, of the line, but the soul of nature, of color, of sun and sea.
Right. Nature Morte aux Grenades is a very important painting where fruit is very well represented.
Yes, he was very interested to have plants, to have fruit. It was always in connection with nature, you know.
Right.
And the nature is the most important thing for Matisse.
Those paintings seem to me to be just bursting with life. You know, that's
Yes.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Oranges dominated Matisse's life, even leading to a lifelong friendship with Picasso.
Picasso bought a painting from Matisse, didn't he? Can you tell me about that?
Yes, the famous still life with orange. And this painting is always in the Picasso Museum in Paris.
But also Matisse used to send him every New Year's Day a bowl of oranges.
Yes,
right?
every year Matisse sent a bowl of orange. Orange is a special fruit, you know, and Apollinaire wrote about the Matisse and Picasso painting. He said that if one had to choose a fruit or something to represent Matisse's painting, you have to choose an orange, because Matisse's painting is bright just like an orange.
Inspired by Matisse's love of orange, Michelin 3-star chef Anne-Sophie Pic is creating a vibrant ravioli dish with fruit in honour of the artist at her restaurant in Valence.
There's a real intensity of colour here. The first thing I really notice is, as soon as I look down at the bowls, I'm getting this beautiful sense of colour from it. I mean, did Matisse inspire you very much when you were growing up? Was art important? Was Matisse important?
When I was 14 years old, I was very impressed by the Impressionists.
Right.
And also I had the great chance of meeting someone who was a very good friend of my father, with Bernard Catlin, who is a very well-known painter in the region and also all over the world. And he was one of the disciples of Henri Matisse. So I suppose I was a little bit influenced by this.
Great.
Yes, really, it's a real story.
So what else is happening now?
So we are going to mix, because colors for me is important because it gives the taste. When you see a plate, you can imagine the taste. So it's very important for me to have the right colors of the vegetables and to give the best taste also.
You think, I mean, you know, Matisse was obsessed by fruit. I mean, can you see that in his work? Do you understand that obsession, you know, that he had?
I'm also a little bit obsessed by foods because we use a lot in the region. So we are in a region and I use also a lot of sweet and salted for my dish.
Right.
It's very important.
So what's going to happen to the raviolis now?
We put into the oven this, okay?
Okay. The thing that strikes me here the most, there is so much work that goes into this thing. I mean, when we see a dish like this, we think, oh, you know, but really the process is extremely intense.
While the ravioli cooks, Pic browns some rich goose liver, the other element in the Matisse-inspired dish. With the ravioli finished, Pic starts to create her masterpiece.
This is an artist at work. It feels like a painting. Voila. That is a beautiful thing.
It's time to eat, but I'm not sure I can.
I have to tell you something here. This is one of the rare moments in my life where I feel guilty about eating something so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Should we try?
Yeah, sure.
Good.
And if you want to perhaps to try this one?
This one, you
Yes.
think? Yeah. Okay. There is an intensity of beetroot out there that is.
You have both the taste of beetroot and also orange. It's important to have both flavors and.
I'm just getting intense flavor, a completely visual experience, and something I'm going to remember for a very long time.
Thank you, Oliver.
The golden period of fruit still life had become well before Matisse and just after Caravaggio. In 17th century Amsterdam, exotic foods shipped in from the East had created newfound wealth here, inspiring many Dutch artists. Jan de Heem's festoon of fruit was as much about status as it was about art. De Heem's festoon of fruit and flowers is a 17th century painting. It's a garland of fruit and flowers with butterflies. I mean, what you see is grapes, plums, ripe figs, and this bursting pomegranate that looks like blood streaming out of it. And this amazing dark background that brings all of the fruit to life. But the thing I like about this painting the most is the fact that I can almost reach in and pick out the fruit. This is the 17th century. I'm so surprised that they had this variety of fruit available to them at the time. I'm meeting Mary Hugh Rucken, curator at the Rijksmuseum, in front of the very houses where this new class of rich Dutch merchant would have lived.
So tell me, why were these still lifes so popular in 1600s?
Well, I think a lot of different kind of paintings were popular, and it was just a way people wanted to have different kinds of paintings in their houses. In still lifes, what was really important, I think, was that it looked so seemingly real.
These fruits were being brought back by traders.
Yes, by ships, I think, mainly, because some fruits were acquired in the Mediterranean area, some probably even came from further away. So you have to realize, I think, that some of these fruits were really difficult to come by at that time.
So were they symbols of wealth?
Yes, in a way they were. Yes, I think they were chosen because of their color, but also I think, which was very nice about them, was that you couldn't see them everywhere. And if you had them hanging on your wall, it does show that you were able perhaps not to own the real fruit itself, but at least a picture of it.
Why do you think Daheem chose fruit?
I think what was very important for painters in the 17th century was to choose a specialization. I think he just decided that with fruit he would be able to become the best known painter, and he did.
To end my journey, I've come to one of the greatest fruit growing regions in the world, Napa Valley in California.
Napa Valley, California, historically referred to as the land of plenty. Its fertile soil is perfect for growing grapes and other fruit. It's little wonder then that some of the finest chefs in America have been drawn to this region.
I'm here to meet Michelin 2-star chef Christopher Costa, who's cooking a dish inspired by Jan Daheem's festoon of fruit.
Christopher, what are you going to do today?
We're going to do a dish of Elysian Fields lamb with some pears from Napa Valley, as well as some pomegranates from Napa Valley. Serve with a little bit of chicory, some bitter greens, and a little bit of butternut squash as well.
Great, all local produce.
All local products, absolutely.
Okay, let's go.
Wonderful. So we're going to start with the pear. We're going to make a small, very simple pear puree. We want to use the ripest pears possible, and we're going to do very little to it. We're not going to add any sugar, really, because it's plenty sweet. A little bit of pear liqueur as well on the heat. What we have here is a little bit of grilled radicchio that's been tossed in pomegranate juice and a little bit of red wine vinegar, sugar, and then grilled. And laid into a very small ladle. Take a little bit of the lamb neck meat. So this is braised lamb neck.
Yeah.
With a little bit of the braising vegetables chopped up back into it. The other preparation is an actual lamb loin.
What do you think of when you see that Daheem painting, festoon?
It has a very sort of opulent quality to it, a very luscious quality. It still sort of is reminiscent of meat in its sort of blood red colors and its sort of variety of colors and its sort of over the top textures as well.
Right.
So that's why we chose to extrapolate a little bit and add a significant meat component.
The lamb loin is tightly wrapped to keep its shape and then gently cooked for 2 hours.
When we use an animal, we like to use as much of it as humanly possible. So what we have here is actually the lamb breast, which is coming off of the saddle. But with all of the acid, especially from the pomegranates, it'll work very well for us.
Great.
So pull the lamb loin out of the water. So we're going to cut off a nice portion of this.
Christopher's dish uses 3 cuts of lamb. The minced lamb, wrapped in grilled radicchio, goes onto a bed of pureed butternut squash.
So we're going to finish the dish with a little bit of lamb jus, and then a little bit of the pear puree that we began before. And there you are.
Not alone is the lamb amazing, that pear works extremely well with it.
Thank you very
It
much.
really sets it off. I love the color of the squash. Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
I think I've seen some of the most beautiful dishes on this journey through art and food. Artists like Caravaggio and Matisse spent their lives trying to capture the essence of fruit on their canvases. And I think our chefs have succeeded in creating something truly extraordinary too.
Remember when the global economy was booming? The price of everything was doubling. Steel, gas, property. Oil was $147 a barrel. There were over 1,000 billionaires on the planet, and going up. But one thing went up faster than anything else: contemporary art.
At $77 million. Thank you.
This Chinese painting cost a record $6 million. A shiny hanging heart went for 23.5. And Andy Warhol sold for $72 million. In those days, Damien Hirst's butterfly paintings were priced at up to $9 million, and collectors bought hundreds of them.
I have to say, I've had the time of my life.
What we're witnessing is a gilded age, much like that at the turn of the last century.
I think that we will see $1 billion artwork in our lifetime.
It was the biggest rise in the financial value of art in the history of the world.
At 19 million.
At art fairs, auctions and biennales, the world's super rich fluttered around contemporary art. But some people knew it couldn't last.
Almost any asset you choose, a fine wine or racehorses or whatever you choose to name has been massively inflated. And the art bubble was just is one facet, an amusing comic parody of a global asset bubble, the like of which has never been seen before, and the collapse of which, as we all know, is bringing down the financial systems of the Western world and some of the emerging markets too.
Even as the world economy tumbled, the contemporary art market kept on rising. The prices were absurd and obscene. The billionaires had turned it into a game that only they could play. Its rules were a mystery. So, I spent a year trying to find out why the contemporary art bubble was the biggest, longest-lasting, bubbliest bubble of them all. My name is Ben Lewis, and this is my electric car. I knew that if I wanted to really get inside the art world, I would have to try to blend in. So I persuaded one of Germany's leading artists to help me.
There's one swelling here.
Yeah, there should be another one in the back.
And here he is. Tobias Rehberger is known for combining design and conceptual art. He's shown in biennales and museums all over the world.
We try to make it look like a big mistake.
You like to work with mistakes, do you not?
Yeah, I do.
As many as possible.
Yeah, they're usually the more interesting parts of something.
Before he came to visit, Tobias had emailed me computer drawings of how he wanted the bodywork of the car altered, with asymmetrical bumps. I found a garage with artistically minded mechanics, and they set to work.
I was a bit worried that the swellings might not be big enough for you.
No, I just wanted it to be look a little bit crook, nothing else. Not too obvious, and but like almost as if it would be a bit out of focus or something. So now we see what else we can do.
This was my idea of good art. It was colourful and witty.
You want more the sportif or the more elegant version?
Oh, sportive.
Sportive.
I'm very sporty.
Okay.
It taught you to see the world in a new way.
All these industrial products we're surrounded by, it's kind of boring and sad in a way, no? I mean, that's why people spray their ghetto blasters or, to make it an object that's individual.
You wouldn't have to enter an exclusive white-walled gallery to see it.
What happens if I leave it parked outside somewhere and some young kid scribbles a graffiti tag on it?
Nothing. I mean, it's it's like any other public sculpture.
I love contemporary art. I write about it for British newspapers. But I didn't like what was happening in the bubble, and I'd written about that too. Much of the art was mass-produced, repetitive and commercial. Collectors bought it for investment and stored vast amounts of it in warehouses. All you ever read about in newspapers were the new record prices. And the special privileges our society gave to art and artists were being exploited by some of the world's richest people to make yet more money from it. The best artists agreed with me.
It's great.
Yeah. I like it.
Do you ever sort of, look at what's happening, like look at, Damien Hirst or Warhol's at auction and think, is this good or bad for art?
I think it's more, the danger is more than like how people speculate with art. It's kind of a misuse somehow. It's not made for that.
At home, I hang pictures on my walls and art books fill my shelves, but I'd always dreamt of driving a work of art. Tobias had made that dream come true, but on one condition, that I didn't sell it. I began following the contemporary art market here. Sotheby's are holding their most successful contemporary art auction ever. We are still 6 months away from financial meltdown, but already the economic news is bad. The American housing market has collapsed, and banks have written off billions of dollars worth of bad debts. In this room, though, it's as if none of this had ever happened.
6 million 5, 7 million, 7 million 5, 8 million, 8 million 5, 9 million, 9 million 5, 10 million, 10 million 5, 11 million.
All the biggest stars of the contemporary art boom have work in the New York auctions.
12 million.
There's Damien Hirst, the British artist of spins, spots and skulls.
$1 million embedded, 1 million.
American pop artist Andy Warhol and his screen prints of celebrities and icons.
And start the bidding here at 1 million 6, 1 million 7, at 1 million 7, at 1 million 8, 1 million 9, at 1 million
Jeff
9.
Koons and his kitsch sculptures.
Jeff Koons naked. And started here at 1 million 2, 1 million 3, 1 million 4 already, at 1 million 5.
And German art star Anselm Reiler and his stripes. Hundreds of collectors, gallery owners, dealers and art advisors are seated in this hall. They've come to buy contemporary art, art that has been made since 1945, now the hottest area of the market.
The bid is in the room on the aisle at $21 million then. It's against you, Grégoire.
Yes, that's $21 million for a one-color painting. 23 with fees. A lot, even when the color's gold. The blue one's a bit cheaper.
15,500,000.
And the pink one's a snip.
Selling then for $4,200,000.
And here is the biggest lot of the evening, a Francis Bacon triptych. This has just become the most expensive post-war work of art ever sold at auction.
Selling then for $77 million. Are we all done? Fair warning. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Ollie, at $77 million. Thank you.
Some buyers raise their hands to bid on the art for sale.
12 million.
Others prefer to offer their millions anonymously over the phone via the auction house sales team. Just a month ago, the IMF announced that losses from the credit crunch would add up to $1 trillion. That will prove to be a massive underestimate. But here, they think the good times will never end.
That is exactly the bid I wanted to see, and that's 642. Thank you.
Contemporary art is the lifestyle choice of our generation.
Yeah, you just love seeing where collectors live.
Contemporary art also fits into the spaces that we now inhabit. These large sort of 21st century lofts in Manhattan demand beautiful, large-scale works.
Hi. Hi. Wow, that's a lot of Murakami.
you can still buy the masterpieces of contemporary art, they're still available. You can't buy the masterpieces of Impressionist and modern art, you can't buy the masterpieces of old masters as readily as you can contemporary art.
Wow. Buongiorno.
So you have this whole series of things which have come together, and then you have a situation where there are some very great artists around.
Questo sì, questo è inglese.
Ah, di Damien.
Damien, Glenn Brown,
Matthew Barney. Sounds like you think we're living in a new kind of renaissance.
I think there are great comparisons to be made between 16th century Florence and the age we're living in now, because that was a time of, again, great wealth and innovation.
Oh my God. Wow.
So this is my kids' room.
Has there ever been a moment when you thought, my God,